This is WKYT This Morning.
Good morning. Time to rise and shine on Election Day in the Commonwealth. I'm Bill Bryant.
And I'm Rebecca Smith. Hope your Tuesday's off to a fabulous start.
And now at 6:30, we are live as voters are heading out to the polls right now to decide who will be Kentucky's next governor.
Why thousands of federal inmates, including dozens in Kentucky, will be released from prison today.
And some Kentucky freshmen had a big night in UK's easy win in their first exhibition game.
Boy, did they look pretty good last night. So does the weather for today. It's a little bit chilly outside this morning, but as you slide throughout the door or out your door, you'll need a light coat. By the afternoon, you will not. Check out these temperatures as we're holding on to temperatures right there around 72 degrees. We're going to be seeing some really nice temperatures in the forecast. Then the rain comes Friday. I'll show you that coming up.
And let's get right to the news.
It is Election Day in Kentucky. The polls now open. Today, voters will be deciding who will be the next governor of the Commonwealth.
There are some things to keep in mind today before you head out to vote. And WKYT's Mark Barber kicks off our Election Day coverage. He's joining us live in Lexington at a polling place. Mark, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. It is an off-year, low-key election cycle for much of the country, but that is not the case for us, as we have seen this morning. Since the polls opened about 30 minutes ago, a lot of voters coming in here to Henry Clay High School, casting their ballot in what they say is an important governor's race. Now, this governor's race, it is one of the top races in the country. Now, it is closely watched. It's very close. It's also a heated race between Democrat Jack Conway and Republican Matt Bevin. Anything could happen as they head into this election day with just 5 points separating them in the polls. Conway has a lead with 45%, according to the latest WKYT Herald Leader Bluegrass poll. Independent Drew Curtis is trailing with 6% of the vote. Now, the race is down to the wire, and the two frontrunners hit the campaign trail hard yesterday, trying to sweep up undecided voters at the last minute. Bevin and Conway are giving voters two very different options. Conway would, for the most part, hold to the policies of Governor Steve Beshear's administration. He would continue with the planned Medicaid expansion and continue supporting traditional early childhood models of education, like Head Start. Now, Bevin, on the other hand, wants to start funding alternative education models. He would also dismantle the state's health insurance exchange and would switch to the federal exchange instead. After that, he would plan to go on to scrap the expansion of Medicaid. Now, two very different candidates in this closely watched race. So who will be our next governor? You decide. The polls close at 6 p.m. Live in Lexington, Mark Barber, WKYT.
All right, Mark, thank you very much. And as you head to the polls this morning, there are a few things to keep in mind. You have to have a valid identification. You also need to be in line by 6 p.m. this evening in order to vote. If you don't know where to vote, the Secretary of State's website can help you with that, and we have a link to that site, the Voter Information Center at WKYT.com. Now, if you suspect fraud at your voting precinct or see anything suspicious, there is an election fraud hotline that you can call. That number is also on WKYT.com.
It's not just Kentucky where voting is underway today. Voters will choose a new governor in Mississippi as well as mayors in more than 300 cities, including Houston and Philadelphia. Tuesday's off-year elections also feature several high-profile state and city ballot initiatives, including ones that deal with school funding, gay and lesbian rights, and restrictions for Airbnb. That's the room rental business. We'll be closely watching what happens in Ohio, where recreational marijuana is on the ballot. Under the measure, Ohio residents would be able to grow their own plants for personal consumption. Commercial marijuana cultivation would also be allowed on 10 farms. If approved, Ohio would be the 5th state to legalize recreational marijuana. About 24 states allow medicinal marijuana.
Well, stay with WKYT throughout the day for complete Election Day coverage. Of course, we'll be watching the trends throughout the day on our newscasts, and we'll have the first returns as they come in during WKYT News at 6. We'll also have live reports and updated returns during special election coverage on WKYT beginning at 7 this evening. And our coverage will be continuous at WKYT.com. Big tradition around WKYT,
yep.
All hands on deck on a day like this when the elections are held. Well, happening today, thousands of federal inmates will be released from prison early.
Yeah, it's part of the government's changes to sentencing guidelines. Dozens of the prisoners to be released are from here in Kentucky. And WKYT's Mike Byer is at our live desk to break down the numbers.
Good morning, Bill and Rebecca. Over 6,000 federal prisoners will be released today who were convicted of drug offenses for which sentences have since been reduced. Of the thousands being released, dozens will be from the state of Kentucky. The change comes as part of an effort to reverse long jail terms for nonviolent offenders who make up about half of the federal prison population. The inmates being released served an average of 9 years in prison and will have their jail terms cut by an average of 2 years. The ones who were eligible had to apply for early release and have judge review the case. The U.S. Sentencing Commission says they'll be watching these prisoners for a specific amount of time and have been preparing for the release for over a year. At the live desk, Mike Byer, WKYT.
Well, new this morning, a Madison County man's accused of raping a child. Steve Luster is charged with rape and sexual abuse. The Richmond Register reports there are 3 victims, at least 2 of them under the age of 12.
The county with the highest unemployment rate in Kentucky is losing another company, and with it, dozens of jobs. Joy Global in Magoffin County announced it will be closing next week. About 70 workers will be laid off. The company makes mining equipment, but says a low demand for coal has forced them out of business. The employees will be paid through December 28th. New this morning, a group has filed an appeal against an underground quarry case in Clark County. In September, a judge upheld the Clark County government's approval of a 2014 rezoning that would allow the limestone quarry. Now, the Southwest Clark Neighborhood Association is appealing the judge's decision. This all according to the Winchester Sun. The case will now head to the Kentucky Court of Appeals.
It's becoming a big problem for some Kentucky schools. More than a dozen have had to cancel classes because of threatening messages that were found on campus. Kentucky schools have gotten 17 threats since the start of the school year. A notable threat occurred at EKU last month. It canceled class for several days. These threats have prompted state school safety officials to partner with law enforcement to try and help the school to handle any threats. Training will be offered to schools beginning next month. Well, the UK basketball team played their first exhibition game last night, getting excitement off to a big slam dunk.
Oh, they looked good. The Cats cruised past Ottawa with 6 Cats finishing in double digits. WKYT's Brian Ryland is in our studio with highlights from that game. Brian.
The basketball Wildcats had their first exhibition of the season last night against the Ottawa Braves. That's the alma mater of UK Athletics Director Mitch Barnhart, and the game was over pretty much early as early as could be. Scally Bissiere, the highlights. Get him going. The mid-range jumper is good. He had 18 points. The UK defense also contributing one of the many steals, one of 10. Jamal Murray, the slam. UK up by a baker's dozen to start. Cats in transition running the floor. Alex Poythress, give it up to the big guy. Scow running the floor well. And UK did a very good job establishing the outside game. UK 12 of 22 on 3-pointers. The little general, Tyler Eulis, 17 points, 10 assists, 0 turnovers. Cal likes unselfish play, and I like the Aussie, Isaac Humphries. Mid-range game looking good. Wildcats looking good. 11 Cats score last night, led by Jamal Murray, who nearly had a triple-double, 22 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. Cats win easily 117-58. A little bit later in sports, Rob Bromley will join us from Rupp Arena with a complete recap. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Brian. It's going to be an exciting season.
Yeah,
you can just feel it, right?
Yeah.
Our time this morning is coming up on 6:39, and time to check live drive traffic. See how things are going out there on the roads this morning. And here is our look.
It's looking pretty good. A little bit of construction that continues near downtown Lexington.
It is Election Day, and most of our public schools are closed today to allow folks to make their way to the polling places. Here are some of our drive times this morning. If you're heading into Lexington from Nicholasville, about 14-minute ride in. From Versailles, about 11 minutes. Those coming from Frankfort will find the ride about 26 minutes or so. And you can get in from Richmond this morning in about the regular time, about 30 minutes or so if you're heading into town today. A lot more news is coming up on WKYT on your Tuesday morning.
Yeah, including this story. They say everything is bigger in Texas. It's true of one golf course where a man has topped his own world record.
And we're looking at cool temperatures this morning. Very mild by the afternoon. We hold on to that in the next few days. And that big front on Friday. I'll show you what that does afterwards, coming up next.